I guess the first thing I would say is that the chamber in Parliament is like a reverse TARDIS. It is much smaller on the inside than it looks from the outside. And when you first go in there, and you sit down on the benches, and when it was full of MPs, as it was for like 2 or 3 months, I think, before we went into lockdown, the thing that really struck me was how noisy it is. Now, when you're watching Parliament on the TV, you can actually hear what people are saying because they're speaking into a microphone, and therefore the microphone is being broadcast. But when you're actually in the chamber, when all that brawling is going on, you actually can't really hear what anybody is saying. There's just this sort of constant noise from every single direction, and it's often very difficult to actually hear the Q&A. Now, on a personal level, I mean, it's a combination of the noise. It's also incredibly hot in there, and it's often very sweaty. So there's been a number of occasions where I've just opted out and thought, you know what, I don't really fancy that. With sort of like, half your bum on the seat and you're half falling off, and you just sort of stuck between all these different people who were sort of praying and shouting. Yeah, and I remember the very first time that I think I was in the chamber with all the MPs there, I just thought, what's wrong with these people? Like, what's wrong with them? This is just so weird. What's actually happened to them? And I think the honest answer is, some people love it and some people hate it. And there are some MPs that walk into the chamber, and it's a bit like, when you go to see a football match and you see, I'm going to say it's a man, but it could be a woman, I guess. But imagine you go to see a football match and you see a sort of dad being ever so caring about his daughter or son, and they're sort of being very affectionate, and they're sort of doing up the shoelaces and sort of calling them sweetie and darling and buying him an ice cream. And then they go into the stadium and they start using the most outrageous sweary language at the at the referee, and then they come out again and go, oh well, that was great. It's a little bit like that. So there are some MPs who go into the chamber and they're shouting and using all sorts of, derogatory language, but then they'll come out of the chamber and say, oh well, that was good fun. How are you doing today? So for some of them it's a bit of an act, I think, and for others it's not. And so it really depends on the individual. So I've definitely seen MPs, I say see them on the opposite benches, not to make a political point, but because when you're sitting in a confrontational way, you're looking at the people on the other side. So you see the MPs on the other side, and might sort of say or do something that you sort of disagree with, but then you have a nice little chat outside of the chamber. And so on the one hand, you can still build a working relationship with them, but the public don't see that side of it. And so it's a very sort of complex thing where some people are, I think some MPs are genuinely aggressive in the way they behave. Others just do it for fun, and others don't like it at all. And I think one of the things that was observed during the sort of hybrid parliament was the very first couple of PMQs, where there wasn't any of that braying, and there was a question, and then there was some silence, and then there was an answer, and then there was some silence, and a few people commented, on Twitter, where people tend to comment, just saying, "Gosh, that's different, isn't it?" And I have to say, I quite liked it. So my preference would be for that kind of behaviour to change, but it isn't as bad as it seems. I think I would want to say, I don't want to excuse it, but it's not as bad as it seems. It's not as aggressive as it seems in some cases. It's a real mixed bag.